Having made progress on my book, I'm ready to start to share more of its details. Burgess Laughlin, author of the Aristotle Adventure, had asked me, "Why did you decide to produce this work as a book rather than as a series of articles? In other words, what criteria should a writer use to make that sort of decision?" Simply, the form follows from the function. My effort has two functions. One, to refute Newt Gingrich's 21st century contract with America, and two, articulate the principles of an actual opposition to the status quo in our politics. Perhaps I could have done the former in an essay, or several, but to accomplish both goals, and to have the space to identify, explain, and integrate the principles and historical references required a much longer format. I expect that many chapters within the final book could be edited into standalone articles, which I am open to publishing earlier and separately as a means to promote the book as a whole. However, the structure of the developing book contains conceptual dependencies as earlier chapters build the foundation for later ones. In this video, I will review the current draft structure of my book as a way to give an overview of its contents. Originally, I planned to simply mirror Gingrich's structure and sequentially go through one chapter at a time, describing his positions, reviewing the principles applied if any, identifying defects, and explaining the missing correct principles and policies. However, I found his book structure to be disintegrated and disordered. I thought perhaps that the chapters followed the outline of his new contract. Fail! It was not even that orderly. For me, this lack of integrated cohesion created some writer's block. Fortunately, I initially broke it by considering that he had essentially written his book backwards. No longer bounded by his presentation, I was able to reorganize his work into several broader themes, which I could rearrange. Instead of disjointedly revealing the 10 points of his new contract as he had done, I intended to restructure them for analysis against a conceptual hierarchy tied to reality by the facts of history, for the benefit of the reader's understanding. I begin by level setting, identifying and reviewing the points of Gingrich's proposed 21st century contract with America, then discuss transforming politics in the context of process reengineering's as-is-to-be modeling. A particular emphasis is placed upon John Adams's view of history and political thinking, the counterexamples of idealists detached from reality, and the problems created by pragmatism. The contract theorists, Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau, founded their ideas upon the domain of man in the state of nature. In contrast, I plan to focus upon the nature of man in a social context. I call the paradigm that I will use Francisco's hierarchy, and you can think of it as a counter-paradigm to Maslow's hierarchy of need. I have not seen others using this as such, so perhaps it is the most unique contribution of this book. I found it expressed in Ayn Rand's novel Atlas Shrugged by the character Francisco during his highly regarded money speech. Quote, "To the glory of mankind there was, for the first and only time in history, a country of money, and I have no higher or more reverent tribute to pay to America, for this means a country of reason, justice, freedom, production, achievement." End quote. Very briefly, consider it to be a step pyramid in the context of reality, with each step having a non-Boolean dynamic quantity which the dependent step cannot exceed without becoming structurally unsound. We cannot have more freedom than justice. Without reason, justice will wane. As we see in our current economic downturn, curtail freedom, then production and achievement will diminish. Note, the typical Democrats and Republicans either ignore or pervert reason in order to assert different conceptions of justice, which are floating abstractions ultimately detached from reality. Meanwhile, libertarians assert freedom as a primary without integration to reality and justice. Using this paradigm, with its dependencies and the dynamic values of its variables, I establish how historical precedent demonstrates the case for capitalism when no 100% laissez-faire system has previously existed. Values are examined in two senses: that which we act to obtain and characteristics that define us. America is not limited as an ethnic or geographic entity so much as it is organized upon the ideas of individualism and liberty. This section will examine issues of ethics: what should be done, who should do it, and the consequences of getting the what and the who wrong. Although it is critical to understanding politics, the concept of rights does not even receive an entry in the index of Gingrich's book. Gingrich asserts that God is central to defining America. In contrast, I make the case for reality and individual rights in that central role. A core issue in Gingrich's program is a political attack upon judicial independence, with a call to subordinate the judiciary to majority will. In the section on constitutionalism, I review the roles played by government, elections, the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. Gingrich deals with three large political issues: national security, health care, and social security, each of which illustrates different issues in governance. National security represents what government should be doing and with focus upon could be doing better. Healthcare represents a prominent question in current debates: what should government's role be in risk management? The problem of Social Security's insolvency represents the challenge of transforming government out of illegitimate activities. The final important point is, what can you do if you want to participate in changing politics and policy? Reviewing the little that Gingrich and I have written on this issue, I see that this is an area which I need to expand. While I enjoy discussing James Q. Wilson's book Political Organizations, something more concrete is a worthwhile addition. Therefore, I plan to collect some primary source material, like lessons learned, directly from those engaged in establishing new activism ventures. I have started by adding links to worthy activism efforts on the blog, so check those out to learn more about the issues, participate, and/or donate. Off the top of my head, activist efforts that I should review include Americans for Free Choice in Medicine, the Ayn Rands Center for Individual Rights, Celebrate Capitalism, the Center for the Advancement of Capitalism, the Coalition for Secular Government, Free Agriculture, Restore Markets, Freedom and Individual Rights in Medicine, Freedom Party of Ontario, the Institute for Justice, the Lucidicus Project, Repeal the Amazon Tax. From that overview, I think that better explains why I've jokingly referred to this project as titled Two Integrated Treatises of Government. In the former, the false principles and foundation of former Speaker Newt Gingrich and his followers are detected and overthrown. The later is an essay concerning the true extent and end of objective civil government. However, with reference to how his false premises undermine an opportunity for real political reform, I refer to this project as Conceding the Future: Gingrich Republicans and the Evasion of Individual Rights. I will be posting more about my book as it comes to completion at concedingthefutureblogspot.com.